In 1620, the Mayflower left England with 102 passengers. By the following spring, nearly half of them were dead. Yet the families that survived kept growing. Today, roughly 35 million people around the world may descend from them. That means one of these 15 names could appear somewhere in your own family records, even if your surname has changed many times since. We begin with a man who nearly disappeared into the Atlantic, and end with the writer who preserved the story. Then the DNA question changes what descendant actually means. If stories like this make you look at your own family differently, subscribe to Helix Files and listen closely. The name may be buried several generations back. Number 1. Howland. John Howland almost never reached America. During a violent storm, a wave swept him overboard. In the dark water, he caught the ship's trailing halyards, and the crew hauled him back aboard. He later married Elizabeth Tilley, and they had 10 children. One missed rope, one exhausted hand letting go, and millions of family trees could look different today. Your own branch could be one of them. Elizabeth Tilley was only about 13 when the first winter took her parents, aunt, and uncle. She survived, married Howland, and became the mother of 10 children. Her story also shows how a family line can survive after a surname disappears. Mitochondrial DNA can follow one narrow maternal path, but records connect the rest of the family. John Alden was a young cooper recruited at Southampton to keep the ship's barrels from leaking. He was not part of the Leiden congregation. Yet he stayed in Plymouth, married Priscilla Mullins, and raised 10 children. Centuries later, their documented descendants included Marilyn Monroe. A temporary job aboard one ship became an enormous family line. Priscilla's father, William Mullins, arrived with 126 pairs of shoes and 13 pairs of boots, enough stock for a new settlement. Then William, his wife, and their son died during the first winter. Priscilla was the only member of their traveling household to survive into spring. The surname became less visible, but the family continued through her children, with Alden. Stephen Hopkins already knew what the Atlantic could do. In 1609, the Sea Venture wrecked near Bermuda on its way to Jamestown. He survived, reached Virginia, returned to England, and then crossed again on the Mayflower. It is hard to know why he boarded another ship after that. His son Oceanus was born during the voyage and died young, but other Hopkins children carried the family forward. Next, a newborn, Plymouth's most notorious passenger, its last survivor, a family separated for 3 years, and the diplomat who helped keep the colony alive. Peregrine White was born while the Mayflower lay anchored off Cape Cod. His family had no home yet, and his father died within months. Peregrine survived and lived to 83, long enough to see a desperate settlement become an established colony. If White appears in your records, your line may reach back to a baby born before his family knew where they would live. Mary Allerton was about 3 when she crossed. Her mother delivered a stillborn son aboard the ship and died 2 months later. Mary survived, raised 8 children, and lived until 1699. By then, every other passenger was gone. The little girl from the voyage became its final living witness, and her documented descendants later included Pete Seeger. Richard Warren crossed without his wife and 5 daughters. He survived the first winter and waited 3 years until they arrived on the Anne. The records tell us they were reunited, but not what they said when they saw one another again. 2 sons were born in Plymouth. Richard died in 1628, 5 years after the reunion. Their 7 children produced 56 grandchildren, turning one separated household into a vast line. Edward Winslow lost his wife during the first winter. Susanna White had lost her husband. In 1621, they married and joined their households. Winslow also became an important diplomat in relations with Wampanoag leaders. Plymouth did not survive through English determination alone. Wampanoag knowledge, trade, and diplomacy were crucial to the colony's survival. 5 remain: a widowed soldier chosen as captain, an indispensable physician, a secret printer, a family split by a leaking ship, and the writer who preserved the record. Myles Standish was a professional soldier who traveled with his wife, Rose. She died on January 29th during the first winter. 19 days later, the colony chose him as captain. He remained in Plymouth Colony for the rest of his life, repeatedly serving as military leader, and later as an assistant to the governor. Personal loss was followed almost immediately by public responsibility. Samuel Fuller came without his wife Bridget. She would not arrive until 1623. His servant William Button died at sea. In Plymouth, Fuller became an indispensable self-taught physician, serving Salem and Charleston too. Bradford wrote that he had much helped others. Fuller survived the first winter, but died during the general sickness of 1633. His documented descendants later included Richard Gere. William Brewster had already lived through secrecy and exile. In Leiden, he operated a press with Thomas Brewer and Edward Winslow, printing religious books banned in England. He crossed with only part of his family. Son Jonathan arrived on the Fortune in 1621. Daughters Patience and Fear came on the Anne in 1623. One family reached Plymouth in stages. Francis Cook and his 13-year-old son John first sailed on the Speedwell. When the smaller ship proved unseaworthy and turned back, they transferred to the Mayflower. Cook's wife Hester and 3 children remained behind until the Anne arrived in 1623. A failing ship split one family across 2 successful crossings. Cook's documented descendants later included Will Wheaton. William Bradford comes last because much of this story reaches us through him. Soon after the Mayflower anchored, his wife Dorothy died while he was away with an exploring party. The details remain uncertain. Bradford became governor and spent years writing of Plymouth Plantation. He recorded hunger, arguments, death, fear, and the choices made when the colony nearly failed. Without his manuscript, many of these names would be only entries on a passenger list. Those are the 15 names. Now comes the paradox. Records can prove that one of them is your ancestor, even when your DNA carries no detectable segment from that person. A rope, a berth, a later ship, and Wampanoag knowledge and diplomacy all shaped who survived. So how can a real ancestor disappear from the genome? Your family tree and your DNA preserve different kinds of evidence. Records can document a line back to 1620, even when a DNA test finds no segment from that particular passenger. For many descendants, the Mayflower lies about 14 generations back. By then, a family tree contains thousands of ancestral positions, but DNA has been reshuffled at every generation. Some inherited segments become smaller. Many disappear from a particular descendant entirely. That does not erase the relationship. It means genealogical ancestry is wider than the DNA you happen to carry. Mitochondrial DNA follows one direct maternal path, and Y-DNA one direct father-to-son path, but neither represents the whole tree. There is no single Mayflower gene, and an ethnicity estimate cannot identify one passenger. The records remain the primary evidence, with DNA offering support alongside them. Do not begin with a family legend and force the records to fit. Start with yourself. Work backward through birth certificates, church books, wills, and probate files. A familiar surname is a lead, not proof. Verify every generation. And remember how close these branches came to disappearing. Howland nearly lost the rope. Tilly lost almost her entire family. Warren's household crossed on separate ships. Cook's family was split by the Speedwell. Does one of these 15 names appear in your tree? Tell us which one, and how far back you have proved the line.